What is up, guys? Today we are back with Avatar, but this time looking at everyone's favourite uncle, Iroh. I think he may be the only uncle in the show, so I don't know why I said favourite, he's the only uncle. But anyway, he is of course everyone's favourite character and one of the most spiritually inclined characters, which is why it wasn't too much of a surprise to see him in the spirit world in Book 2 of Legend of Korra. But there was always a question that I had about how that happened. So today, I'll be looking at how Iroh entered and became a spirit in the spirit world. Now, to kind of preface all of this with a bit of information about the spirit world, gotten from the Avatar wiki, so do not judge me. This is basically how the spirit world is described. So the spirit world is not primarily an afterlife, but humans who were naturally imbued with spiritual energy or maybe even developed a strong connection to the spirit world during their lifetime can transcend the mortal plane, really, following their death and embody some form of energy or form in the spirit realm itself. Now, there are only a few ways for humans other than the Avatar to enter into the spirit world. They can be carried in by a spirit as their being or form shifts between the worlds, or they could be an enlightened individual that can cross over through meditation. So these two possibilities are the ones that I think basically embody what could have happened to Iroh to become a being in the spirit world. I'll start first with the carried over by the spirit, but in the case of how I look at it, it's slightly different in that I think the carried over is more of a blessing more than anything, and this is due to the experience that we have with Yue, who was blessed by the moon spirit due to her being born unwell and sickly. And as such, when she was blessed, she was able to give her spirit and her life force to the moon spirit when it was killed, leading to her becoming the primordial goddess of the moon. And I think this is something similar with Iroh, because Iroh himself has been very well connected to what could be considered primordial beings, specifically in the form of the great last dragons, Fran and Shaw, who he basically saved from utter extinction by pretending that he had killed them so that no one would continue to go searching for them. And as such, he became well known and almost beloved by the Sun Warriors, and in my mind by Fran and Shaw also. And as such, his protection of these beings and his understanding of the power and the beauty that fire as an element and as a natural thing, I think is what helped lead to Fran and Shaw believing that Iroh was deserving of their blessing. And for me, the evidence that he was most likely blessed is due to the spirits that we see him see in Avatar itself. We see him see Fang, a dragon. Now, dragons are obviously connected deeply to firebending and the Fire Nation, so it may not be specifically out of the ordinary to see dragons or fire-based creatures, but the fact that the majority of spirits that, well, I say majority, we see him see one spirit at one time, but the fact that it was a dragon spirit, and the fact that at this point he'd already freed and made sure that Fran and Shaw were safe, it could connect to this blessing that they gave him in the fact that it was a dragon blessing. So he is now imbued with the spirit and the blessing of a dragon. So all dragon spirits, whilst he is in his human life, can be seen by him. Maybe a bit of a stretch, but who knows. But this primordial being essence and this power of dragons kind of fits with Iroh, who was the dragon of the West. And honestly, who couldn't believe that Iroh would be blessed by a primordial being? But don't take my word for it. Primordial beings are kind of something I don't know too much about, and that is where Tim from A Hello Future Me comes in. Tim, take it away.
Hello Fran, and thank you very much for having me, because I do have thoughts on this. See, initially, I didn't think it would be possible for dragons to actually be spirits. I thought that was just too far-fetched. Until I took a closer look at the evidence. See, in the Avatar world, virtually every primordial force has a spiritual representation of some kind, the two biggest ones being the moon and the ocean. But we also see forest spirits in Heibai. We get mentions of earth spirits, and we also see the Mother of Faces, who represents something along the lines of individuality or personhood, but it's a big nebulous concept. But no sun spirit. No sun spirit ever, anywhere. Nothing seems to represent them. No one even mentions the term sun spirit. Yet, there should be, right? There should be something that represents such an important force in the world. And that is where we get on to dragons. See, they're not really animals, are they? They're not beasts. They're sapient, they're intelligent, they're sentient. They can see into our minds and they can know who we truly are, like they do with Zuko and Iroh and Aang. So, they have a presence that's a lot more akin to a spirit, don't they? And they also seem to have some abilities which are more associated with spirits than they are with animals. For example, Fang gives Aang a vision in the winter solstice, which is something that we actually only see other spirits do. And also that sentience, that ability to kind of know and be intelligent on a different level to humanity, that's definitely something we'd see with spirits, but not with really any other animals. The dragons mainly feature in the episode The Firebending Masters, where Zuko and Aang go to find the original firebending civilization. And what's really interesting is that the Sun Warriors don't just revere the dragons, they revere the sun. You can tell this from their architecture, the imagery in it. You can tell it from the use of their golden colours. You can tell it from the fact that their altar that they've built, that the dragons come out of and encircle, is all meant to frame the sunset. This is a really interesting parallel. It's almost like that parallel was always there. It's a spiritual parallel, it's a religious parallel for them, but it's never explicitly stated. They're also based on the Aztecs or Mayans, both of whom really revered the sun as a primordial and powerful spirit. So it definitely wouldn't be surprising if firebending civilization came out of the sun as a primordial spirit. So where is that spirit now? Well, there's a couple of the details that I find really interesting that build into this. For example, Zuko says at the end of the first season, you may rise with the moon, but I rise with the sun. Firebenders are more powerful with the sun, and of course they become entirely powerless when it is eclipsed. What does this tell us? Well, it tells us that there's a real parallel between the moon, which powers up waterbenders, especially at full moon or when there's no moon, and the sun, which powers up firebenders. So the sun seems to be playing the same role as the moon does for the waterbenders. But we've always been told that the dragons were, of course, the first firebenders, the original firebenders that taught people how to use it. The only thing that seems to make sense to me in all of this is that the sun spirit did exactly what the moon and ocean spirits did all the way back in the beginning. They crossed over into the mortal world and took physical form. With that in mind, we could theorize that the dragons, being passed down through generations, are the dissemination of the sun spirit. It would explain why they are treated as the original firebenders, why so many parallels are drawn between them, why there is this murky religious history to them that is never really explained but is clearly there. But this is just a theory, and there are other ways of thinking about it, even simpler ways of thinking about it, that may explain how Iroh got into the spirit world. In other words, Iroh is known for his meditation and spirituality.
And it is through Iroh's meditation and spirituality that this next part of how Iroh could have ended up in the spirit world makes sense also. Now, Iroh, as we all know as a fandom, is one of the most intellectual and philosophical and just fantastic mentor and spiritually connected person. So to consider the fact that another way to enter the spirit world is through deep meditation. This is Iroh. He is like the zeniest of zen fellas out there. So for meditation, there are many things that connect to Iroh that could lead to him becoming a person in the spirit world based on his philosophy. But let's just give a few examples of something that could connect to this enlightenment through meditation. Now, I admit we don't really see Iroh do any form of what we would consider meditation, and through what the teachings of Buddha basically describe how enlightenment and meditation works. To achieve enlightenment, one has to meditate about the state of things and life in general for a long period of time to achieve enlightenment. But we don't really see Iroh do that, or do we? Throughout the series, we learn about Iroh's past and the things that he has experienced and learned in his own sense. Really, he's had his own redemption arc from a brutal general in a war to the kind and moral teachings of an older man who is hoping to drive change in his nephew who is falling down the same path that he did. Take the episode of the Tales of Ba Sing Se. In relation to his son Lu Ten, who he sadly lost to the war. Throughout his episode, The Tales of Ba Sing Se and The Tale of Iroh, we see him interacting with boys of many different age groups and teaching them lessons to help improve their life and kind of being a comforting presence to them. He helps a young boy who is crying by singing him a song. He helps the next age up of boys who accidentally break a window and teaches them that they need to accept consequences for their actions, unless the consequence is going to end in serious pain. And then when he meets a robber, he sits down with the man and talks him through his life and basically helps him see another side of things. And then of course we have that final scene of him saying that he wishes he could have saved Lu Ten. And it's this moment that, for me, I see a man who, since the death of his son, has gone throughout the rest of his life from that point, trying to change things and others for their better, because he wasn't able to do the same for his son. And like I said, we see that with Zuko. Every teaching that Iroh has is based on his own experience and also his teachings through experiencing the harshness of the world. All of his teachings and him guiding Zuko and even guiding Toph and Aang at random points when he does spend time with them, it is all, in a sense, his own form of meditation and building towards enlightenment. Every teaching is helping to guide another person's life in a way that can help better them, but also better the state of the world. Iroh has seen the darkest points of humanity in his time in the world itself. And so, through meditating in a sense on that, he is able to direct those in his life and others to find a new way. And that is leading to his personal enlightenment on how to improve and understand the world itself. These two ideas of how one can pass on to the spirit world, whether it be through the blessing or the carrying of a spirit, or a personal enlightenment through meditation, Iroh embodies both of these. And the fact that it is Iroh really stands out for the fact that it truly makes sense that someone who is so spiritual, philosophical, and has done wonders for the spirit and for the world would have the blessing of multiple spirits, but also the power of his own inner strength through meditation and later enlightenment. It just makes sense that he would be granted this ability as a human to live on and continue to offer advice in his spiritual form in the spirit world, as we see with what he does with Korra and later Tenzin and Aang's children. He continues to be a guiding spirit. And who wouldn't want the advice and guidance of Iroh? I mean, come on, it's Iroh. But what do you guys think? Do you think these two teachings make sense as to how Iroh could have ended up in the spirit world, or do you have your own examples? Whatever the case, let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, I want to give a massive thank you to Tim from Hello Future Me for joining me for this video. I'm touched, I'm delighted, and thank you so much. To you guys watching, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I truly do appreciate it. In the description box down below, you will find the links to my social media, my merchandise store, and my Patreon. Can't support me on Patreon? Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already. And of course, go check out Tim's channel because it's Hello Future Me. How have you not checked out his channel yet if you haven't already? And again, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Fran, and I will see you guys next time.